Hello again. This is the second part of this hands-on workshop to develop Python applications using Oracle SODA, Simple Oracle Document Access API we have for Python and the autonomous JSON database. I'm now connected to the remote desktop connection for my compute node in Oracle Cloud. This is the compute node I'm going to use for development as my development environment. And this application, for example, then later can be deployed as a microservice on a Docker container. However, for now, I'm going to follow the lab guide, and I'm going to start creating this application on this development environment using Oracle Linux. If I want to use my SSH connection, I need to run sudo su-oracle just to connect as Oracle user to develop my application as Oracle user in my SSH connection. However, it is easier to use the graphical user interface, the tools we have on the remote desktop connection. You can install your own IDE environment here to develop the applications you want. In system tools, I have the terminal. The terminal, which is the interface I'm going to use to run all the commands in the lab guide. This is the Linux terminal. I'm going to put it here, place it here, just to see also the commands behind in the lab guide. I have to watch with the scroll because my mouse is really, really fast and scrolling is not a good idea. I need to use the manual scroll. First, I need to create a folder for my project. And I'm going to move to that folder, change the location to that folder. And then I'm going to create two files. One for the application code and the other one for the requirements for the libraries which will be installed for my application. And then I'm going to install the virtual environment, Python virtual environment. Here in my, to create a virtual environment, it seems it's already, you have to check and run the exact commands in the lab guide. And then I'm going to create it and activate it. To activate the virtual environment is /bin activate command. So now I am in the Python simple project virtual environment. You can see the name here. And here in this virtual environment, I'm going to install my libraries. And the libraries are specified in the requirements pip file in the script. For now, these are the libraries I need, only 3 libraries. I'm going to use gedit to edit this file and specify the libraries I need for this application. And from this point, I can see the application code. The application code is here. It is displayed here in different sections. The first section is to import the libraries, operating system, JSON, PyMongo to connect to the Mongo database, and Flask library for the Flask application. And then I'm taking the connection details for the Mongo database from the operating system using the environment variables in the operating system. And then this is the connection string, which was provided by the MongoDB cloud account. I have it also here opened. I have connected to the MongoDB cloud from the remote desktop interface from the browser I have in this desktop interface. Here is the database access, and this is the Mongo user and the network access, which I have specified the client VM computer here. I need to provide the access from my compute node, which I'm using right now. So I think I need to add one more IP address here. Let me edit this one, or I can add another one. It's the same because I've done many tests, and for the cloud account, let me see. I had an Oracle. This is the one. Compute node instances. Yeah, there are so many things, so many components. If I follow the lab guide, I would definitely find all of them, but usually I skip some steps, and that's why 32, and this is my client VM. Confirm. This is the client VM, the IP address of the compute node, just to make sure I can connect to this cluster, to this database. And then private endpoint, no, I don't need this one. Advanced. Anyways, if you create a database, MongoDB database using that wizard, you will be able to access it because it will give you the exact connection string, and you should be able to copy it from there, from the from that wizard. Okay, databases, connect here. Connect from your application. And here it is. This is the connection string. So you are supposed to retrieve this string, which will be later used in the application. So this is the string you are supposed to use in the application. So here I have the string. However, I split it into multiple pieces here just to be able to insert the username, the password, the cluster name, and the domain name. So I'm supposed to, this is hard coded here. So I'm supposed to change cluster name and domain name because these are hard coded. The username, password, and database name are variables, environment variables. I will export these variables to the operating system, and I will collect these variables from the operating system. But the cluster name and the domain name are hard-coded into my connection string. So it is very important to go here to the connection string, take the cluster name, by default is cluster 0, and the subdomain, which has like 5 strange characters, well, 5 random characters. But this is mine. You should take your connection string from your own MongoDB instance. I'm going to continue with the sections in my MongoDB application. The first function is to insert documents. It's a post method for the API, REST API requests. It's a post, and it will insert a JSON into my collection, into my MongoDB database. And the second function is to list all documents in my collection. It is a REST API, a GET REST API, which will retrieve all documents from my collection. And the last section is the main section of the application. This is default one, and I'm using the local host here IP because I'm going to run this web service on the same machine, and I'm going to use it on the same machine on localhost. I don't have to change anything here. So now this is the entire code of the application: the libraries, the operating system environment variables, the connection string, which I'm supposed to change with my names, with my cluster name and domain name. And then the two functions, one with post to insert documents and one with the with just the default route to list all documents. I'm going to copy this code into my simple application py. Let me list. So I have these files now. I'm going to do a gedit simple application py. I'm going to copy the code. Here I have to specify my cluster name, cluster 0, and the domain name, the subdomain name, which is this one. So the user password and database name are taken from the operating system. The cluster name and the subdomain is hard-coded into my connection string, and the rest is exactly the same. I'm going to save it and close it. The next step is to run this application and see how it works. Before running it, I'm going to export the 3 variables I'm using from the operating system. I'm going to I exported the MongoDB username. Let me make it wider. See what I have done. So I exported the MongoDB user, the password, and the database name. I have them already now, like environmental variables. And now I need to install the requirements. I'm going to run the pip install requirements in my requirements pip file. This is what I'm supposed to do also on the Docker container in case I'm deploying this application on Docker container. So now I can run the application. I have this application running on my local IP address, on my internal IP address on the port 5000. I'm going to connect to this application in this browser here. I'm going to use one of these tabs, the third one. So now I have an empty collection. This is the default route, which has nothing but the port number, will list me the documents in my collection. And I have no documents now in my application. I can, this is the empty collection. I can insert documents using curl commands. And I'm going to use the local host to port 5000 to access my microservice to insert a document. This is one of the documents in the data payload here. And it's a JSON document with 5 fields, very simple one, or no, more, 7 fields. The end of the JSON is here, not here, it's here. So it has like 7 fields, and this is how it looks like. So I'm going to insert one document. You can use the public IP address if you deploy this application on an instance which has access to the internet. You'll be able to use the public IP address of the service in order to host documents into that service. So you don't have to use the local host like I do here. I'm going to open a new tab. And here I am going to run the curl command. And that's it. You can see here, if I go to the tab where I opened the application, this is the application listing me the one document I just inserted in my MongoDB database. And if I go to the MongoDB database, let me close this connection details window. Cluster 0, collections, simple collection. I have one document, and voila, this is the document I just inserted from my Python microservice I just created in this simple application. This is how it looks like. It's a Python web service I created, and I can insert another document if I want. I'm going to copy it from here. I'm using the Control-C command and now Shift-Control-V to be able to paste into the terminal. And now I can go to the application where the application is running, and I have two documents. And if I go to the MongoDB simple collection, I click on the collection name. Let me refresh. Let's see if I can refresh it. I have two documents now. I have one company 1 and the other one is company 2. So I have two documents. I just created company 1 and company 2. This is company 2 and the first one was company 1. This is company 1. So I have a web service running on my compute node here. This is my development environment. I'm going to deploy it in a Docker container. And this web service basically uses a MongoDB database to store documents. The next task is to improve my document store web service, adding Oracle Autonomous JSON database as a data store, as a document store location. I'm going to see what I have in downloads, and I'm going to download the Oracle wallet. In order to download the Oracle wallet, let me connect to my cloud infrastructure. This is the connection I received in my lab information here in Oracle database, Autonomous JSON database. I have the workshop AJD database instance in DB connection. I'm using the instance wallet, download wallet. I'm going to specify a password for the wallet. You can specify the same password, and I'm going to save it in my downloads folder. Now, if I go to my ls downloads, here it is, the wallet zip file I just downloaded from my database connection. And now I'm going to make a folder using the same name. So the wallet WSAJD, exactly the same name. I'm going to make a folder in Oracle Home. And I'm going to unzip the wallet zip file into that folder. I'm going to copy this command and paste it here, and I'm going to unzip the files. And then I need to use the TNS-admin variable into my SQLnet Aura connection file. I'm going to use VI this time, just for fun. It's the same. SQLnet.Aura. I'm going to change the directory of the TNS-admin to the location of that variable. And I'm going to save it. And now I just need to export that location into my, but actually this is my session when I have the application. So I'm going to close the application here. And here I'm going to do the export, because this is where I need to run the application when the session where I have to use this environment variable. And I also need to add another library to the requirements tip, the CX Oracle driver for Oracle database connection from Python. Let me edit this file to add the new library which is required. I can run install again to install my requirements, which will install the CX Oracle. I need to take the service name from the TNS names Aura file. This is the TNS names Aura, and this is the TP service name I'm going to use for my Python application connection. Just to test it, my autonomous JSON database connection, I'm going to use SQL Plus to test my connection to see if it works. So I am connected as demo user, the one I created with the Application Express interface, and it also has access to the SODA app application drivers, so that my connection works. The next step is to add the lines needed for this application to my simple app file. I need to import the CX Oracle. Let me edit this. I'm gonna use gedit this time to edit the application. Here, I need to import CX Oracle drivers. I'm going to add and retrieve the Oracle database connection details from the operating system after the MongoDB ones. I'm going to, let me also copy the comment here. I'm going to create the Oracle connection. So this one, which I already have right now, is the MongoDB connection. And now I need to create the Oracle connection. The Oracle connection is very similar. The code is very similar because I'm using the SODA APIs. And this is a lot easier for developers to understand than using PL SQL, for example. So this is the, let me add also the comment here, just for you to see the difference. This is the MongoDB connection, which is already running. and I tested it. And now I need to create my Oracle connection. My Oracle connection has a different connection string. I have the username / password at service name. And then the connection is using the CX Oracle library to connect to the Oracle database using the connection string. I'm using the auto commit. I don't have to commit my transactions. So everything I write on the database, it is already committed. It will be committed automatically. And I'm defining my SODA here, my collection, my SODA collection. So I'm using the connection database to define my Oracle collection I'm using in Oracle. And I'm going to use M collection for Mongo and O collection for Oracle. To just differentiate the two connections. And then I'm going to add an M here for the services I already have for MongoDB. Let me show you. So here, I'm going to add an M at the end of the URL for the base URL for the services. And I'm going to use Mongo collection. And these are the functions which are already defined for MongoDB. And now I need to copy the functions for Oracle database. Oracle database functions will have an O at the end of the base URL, just to differentiate the two services. And the main component is exactly the same. So the function to insert documents into the MongoDB is this one. Let me show you. This is the function to insert documents to MongoDB, and this is the function to retrieve documents from MongoDB. The function to insert documents into Oracle database, this is the one. So the O means Oracle, M means Mongo. But the rest of the URL will be the same. You have to make sure you post or you access the right web service. You can give it a more complex name just to make sure you have the right URL. Once I have this application modified, you can also copy you can remove all the code in the application, and you can copy all the code I have here in this section, in this block of code to the file to make sure that everything is properly in the saved and the file is properly modified. So I hope I did all the changes correctly. So I have M collection for Mongo, M collection insert, yes. O collection for Oracle, and the operating system variables, the connection details. Okay, the collection will have the same name in Oracle as the one we have in MongoDB. It's going to be named simple collection inside the database. And this is it. So I saved the file, and now I'm going to create a new script for the variables just to make sure I export those variables properly. And I'm going to provide the details for my connection details for my databases. First three environment variables are used for the MongoDB database. Last four are used for Oracle, the wallet location, the TNS admin, user, password, and the service name. Let me save this one. So now I'm supposed to run the application with the new code. Let me export the variables, and then run the application to see what happens. I have the application here. Okay, the application now is running. It looks fine. I'm going to have to specify here, specify here M if I want to reconnect to my MongoDB documents to display all my documents. Here, I'm going to, let me close some of the tabs. Here, I'm going to open a new tab, which has the same URL, but with Oracle, with O at the end, to display my Oracle documents, my Oracle connection. But my Oracle collection now it's empty, so I have an empty collection. But then I can insert more documents. Now I have to insert the documents to the base URL with an M at the end to insert more documents into my MongoDB database. For example, I have to run this curl. I'm going to use the second tab. I have now company 3 into my MongoDB, and one more company into my MongoDB. Company 4, I just inserted company 4 into my MongoDB database. And now if I refresh this page, I see more companies here. I see company 4 and company 3. If I go to MongoDB and I refresh my, let me go back to the database here. I have 4 documents. So I have company 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I used my web service running on this compute node to insert 2 more companies as JSON documents into my MongoDB data store. Now I can also insert documents into my Oracle JSON autonomous JSON database. This is the command. Here I'm using the /o web service running on this application, on this Python application, to insert documents into my JSON, Oracle Autonomous JSON database. I'm gonna insert one document, company 5, into Oracle. And if I go to my /o page where I'm listing the documents in my Oracle JSON database, and I refresh the page, I see company 5 inserted. And if I go to the autonomous database, database actions, and here I am connected as admin. Let me sign out because I was already connected. Connecting as demo. Sign in. Here, if I go to JSON, I have simple collection and company 5 as a document in my Oracle Autonomous JSON database. I just inserted from my web service I created. Now I can insert another document into Oracle JSON database. For example, this one, company 6. I'm going to copy company 6 and I'm going to run it in my second tab of the terminal here. And now if I refresh my Oracle listing page, I see company 6. The document, if I go to the autonomous JSON database collections and I refresh my collection, let me see. Let me click the play button here. I have the company 6 document in my Oracle Autonomous JSON database. I have 2 documents in Oracle right now. I'm going to insert 2 more documents into Oracle because I just want to have 4 documents in both databases. Two more documents. This is company 7 and company 8. These are the documents I'm going to insert now in my autonomous JSON database, just to have 4 documents in each one of the databases, in each one of the data stores. So I have company 5, 6, 7, 8 in my Oracle, and 1, 2, 3, 4 in MongoDB database. If I refresh my Oracle data store here, I can see 7 and 8. Oh, 7, sorry, 7, 5, 8, 6. They are not in order because I didn't specify any order here in this listing. I can filter and I can order the documents using any field I want, but in this case they are not ordered. And now let's see what's next. So I have to refresh the browser. This is where I specify what I'm supposed to do to see the results. And if I want to limit and to paginate, for example, the documents I display in the list of documents when I retrieve the documents from the MongoDB data store or from Oracle JSON database, the MongoDB API is very similar to the SODA API. For example, in MongoDB API, I have to specify limit to skip to show you the last 2 documents in the application. Let me close the application just to show you how it works. In MongoDB, find here. So here, I have to do limit to skip to. In Oracle collection, the autonomous JSON database API is very similar, and I have to go to the find here, get documents. I need to replace this one. So I need to add limit to skip to again before get documents. And this time, if I save it and close it, and I'm gonna run the application again. And if I refresh this page, it's gonna display the last 2 documents because I'm using pagination and I'm showing just the second page of the page of the pages which are limited to only 2 documents per page. So I have company 3 and company 4. In Oracle, I have the same. I have company 8 and company 6 because I'm not specifying the order in which documents are displayed. And that's why in Oracle, it shows me the documents in the order they have been saved into the collection. So I'm supposed to order the documents when I'm retrieving them from the collection. This is the idea. I'm not going to do that right now because it's going to complicate maybe the application. So this is a very simple example just to show how it works. And then the last part, I can move documents, for example, from one data store to another. For example, I can move documents from MongoDB to Oracle database. I'm going to create a new application for this. Let me stop this one. And let me edit simple migrate by. And I'm going to copy the code from here. I'm going to show you, I'm going to explain then what the code means. Cluster name and domain name, which is hard coded here. I'm supposed to change in the browser, in the Mongo. This is my subdomain name. For the domain name. And the rest, I think, is exactly the same. So I have the same user, password, server, connection, and then I have the code. In this application, what I do is I connect to both data stores at the same time. I'm connecting to the MongoDB and to the Oracle. I'm creating two connections at the same time. And then I use the MongoDB collection and using that connection to retrieve documents. And then I'm inserting all the documents I retrieve from MongoDB into Oracle. So I use the O collection, the collection I have in Oracle, insert one and get the ID, the document. And I'm also using the key from MongoDB data store as a new field in Oracle to identify the documents I'm migrating from MongoDB to Oracle in using this key. I'm going to show you immediately how it works. Let me save the script, close it. I don't need this one. And if I go back to my guide here, I'm going to run this simple migrate by. So I'm going to maximize this window. I'm displaying the key of the document. Here I use the ID from MongoDB. And I'm displaying the new key in Oracle. In Oracle, documents have a key, and in MongoDB, they have an ID. This is the field which is used to identify an individual document in the data store. Let me show you. If I go to MongoDB here, you see they have an ID. This is a MongoDB data document, JSON document. In Oracle, they have a key. This is the key of the document. There are some small differences, let's say, on how the documents are saved into the data store. If you go, for example, to the MongoDB collection, you can see the key here in the simple collection. Here, this is the ID they have in MongoDB. You see this orange field as the ID. In Oracle, where is that key? If I edit the document, no. when I retrieve it, I see the key, but clone document, no export, no delete, no. Well, I don't remember where the key was. Anyways, I'll be back. I will drop me an email and I will tell you where that ID is. I can see it here, the key into my application when I retrieve those documents. So back to my application, I'm going to run the application. So I already ran the application, and you can see the ID from Mongo has been copied into the Oracle database, and it has been created as a new field with the ID number. So you can identify the documents that have been migrated from MongoDB to Oracle. And now if I refresh my Oracle database page, no, my application is not running. I need to run the application again. But first, let me take a selfie. No, first, let me edit the simple app py and just to remove the pagination to display all documents from both services. Save. And then run the application, simple app. Go back to my browser here, refresh my browser. So you can see now the companies that have been migrated. Let me find one company, 7, no. This is company 1, which has been migrated from MongoDB. Company 1, which is here until here. Because from here we have the ID and company 2. So this has been migrated from MongoDB to Oracle, and you can see in Oracle has the key, but also has the ID from MongoDB. The company 7, for example, which is this one, doesn't have the ID field because it was introduced directly into Oracle database. Let me show you now on the JSON. Let me refresh the collection. And you can see here the companies that have been migrated are company 2. This is an original Oracle one. Company, no, I skipped one. Company 1 has been migrated. It has a new field here. No, this is not the one I was looking for. So all the companies with an ID, they are the companies that have been migrated from MongoDB database. This is the idea. So basically, this is the end of the workshop. You can see this is the output I received in my terminal. And now I can refresh the JSON, autonomous JSON database here, and I can see in my collection, 8 companies are available in my collection. So indexes, there are other operations I can perform from this. I don't have any indexes created. Anyways, this is the end of the workshop. Thank you very much.